Among the people of Judah, a curious story involves a bronze serpent that was erected by Moses during the Exodus, as recorded in the book of Numbers. Its creation was linked to divine healing, where those bitten by venomous serpents could look at the bronze serpent and be healed. However, over time, this serpent became an object of worship known as Nehushtan, instead of being a symbol of trust in God's power to heal. The serpent transformed into an idol, violating the fundamental principles of worshipping a single God. When Hezekiah undertook his religious reforms in Judah, he made the courageous decision to destroy the bronze serpent. His action not only broke ties with idolatrous practices, but also demonstrated an unwavering commitment to divine providence. By purifying the temple and abolishing idolatry, Hezekiah not only restored true worship, but also paved the way for divine intervention in his life and nation. The Lord responded to this act of faith with blessings, revealing himself as a God who honors those who seek him with all their heart. Thus, the story of King Hezekiah is not just a chapter in Judah's narrative, but an enduring testimony of how sincere commitment to God can transform not only a king's life, but an entire nation. Hezekiah left behind a legacy of faithfulness, reminding us of the importance of placing God at the center of our lives and societies. However, the worst scenario was yet to come. In a period of political turmoil and constant threats, the imposing shadow of Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, loomed over Judah's borders. It was a time when nations were defined by military strength, and Sennacherib led the Assyrian nation, considered one of the most powerful in the world at that time. The Assyrian army, known for its cruelty and military effectiveness, was an imminent threat to neighboring kingdoms. Sennacherib, in his quest for expansion, ruthlessly advanced through the cities of Judah, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. However, his covetous gaze was fixed on the region's pearl, Jerusalem. Hezekiah, the God-fearing king, found himself cornered by the Assyrian threat. Seeking a peaceful solution, he tried to persuade Sennacherib to abandon his plans to invade Jerusalem. In a desperate gesture, he offered a significant tribute, mobilizing the treasures of the temple and the palace in Jerusalem. The tribute was monumental: 10.5 tons of silver and 1 ton and 50 kilos of gold, an offering that reflected not only material wealth, but also the depth of the desire to preserve the holy city. Hezekiah, in his quest for peace, was willing to sacrifice invaluable treasures to protect his people and his capital. However, Sennacherib's response revealed the typical arrogance of the conquerors of the time. Disdaining the offering, the Assyrian king openly challenged both Hezekiah and the God of Israel. His defiant words echoed, claiming that just as the gods of the conquered nations could not stop him, the God of Israel would also be powerless against his advance. This affront not only exacerbated tensions, but also solidified the need for divine intervention. Hezekiah, faced with the rejection of his peace attempts, turned to the only source that could guarantee deliverance: prayer and trust in the Lord. Faced with the imminent threat of Assyria, Hezekiah confronted a period of intense uncertainty and doubt. The biblical account describes his initial reaction of anguish to Sennacherib's ultimatum. He tore his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth, traditional symbols of mourning and despair in the Jewish culture of the time. Hezekiah's heart pulsed with despair, but his faith remained unshakable. While the shadows of invasion loomed over Jerusalem, Hezekiah chose not to surrender to despair, but to lift his cry to the God of Israel. Instead of completely succumbing to fear and uncertainty, Hezekiah took concrete steps. He went to the temple of the Lord to worship, seeking God's presence amid adversity. This attitude reflects Hezekiah's understanding that even in the face of a formidable threat, his primary trust and refuge should be found in the Lord. Moreover, Hezekiah did not hesitate to seek divine guidance through the prophet Isaiah. He sent a delegation to the prophet dressed in sackcloth as a sign of humility and supplication. It is in this scenario of anguish that the prophet Isaiah, chosen spokesman of the Most High, brings a divine message to the king. Isaiah, instructed by the Lord, announces words of comfort and the promise of deliverance. The prophet's message was like a balm to Hezekiah's troubled heart. Do not be afraid of the words you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed against me. I will make him return by the way he came. Isaiah transmits the words of the Lord, offering divine guarantees of protection and supernatural intervention. The God of Israel would not remain indifferent to the pleas of his faithful servant. The promise was clear: the city would not be handed over to the king of Assyria. The God whom Hezekiah sought in prayer was about to manifest his power in response to the trust placed in him. Furthermore, Isaiah prophesied that Sennacherib would return to his own land and be defeated by the sword in his own native land. The prophetic message not only calmed the king's heart, but also strengthened his faith. Hezekiah, even in the face of the immense threat, chose to trust in the word of the Lord, spoken through Isaiah. This trust was not just a matter of military strategy, but a total surrender to the God who controls destinies. The next day, the scene was grim. The walls of Jerusalem witnessed the growing shadow of the Assyrian army led by Sennacherib. However, while the city was about to face its most terrible ordeal, a celestial chapter was about to unfold. In the darkness of the night, when the silence was only interrupted by the distant murmur of the Assyrian camp, a divine intervention was underway. The Lord sent his angel, a celestial figure enveloped in light and power, to confront the army threatening his chosen people. The angel, emissary of the Almighty, hovered over the Assyrian camp like a divine sentinel. In a single night, a celestial being defeated 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. The celestial battlefield was beyond human comprehension, and the victory did not come through human military strategies, but through the supernatural power of the angel sent by the God of Israel. The miracle went beyond military defeat. It was a tangible manifestation of divine care and protection. The promise made through the prophet Isaiah was being fulfilled. The God of Israel not only heard Hezekiah's anguished prayers, but acted with incomparable power to deliver his people from the Assyrian threat. As they walked through the fields that once hosted the Assyrian camp, the inhabitants of Jerusalem encountered an awe-inspiring sight. Where the tents of the enemy army once stood, now lay 185,000 lifeless bodies, a graphic demonstration of the divine power that had operated during the night. The silence that enveloped the defeated camp was interrupted by murmurs of awe and gratitude. Each corpse testified to the supernatural intervention that transformed the imminent nightmare into an undeniable miracle. The faith of the people who had faced a night of apprehension blossomed in the light of the morning, now illuminated by the divine victory. The citizens of Judah not only beheld the remnants of the miracle, but felt deeply in their hearts the victory over the Assyrians. It was not achieved through military strategies or human strength. It was the visible manifestation of divine favor. That morning became a living testimony to the faithfulness of the God of Israel. Sennacherib's destiny was marked by a surprising turn of events. The leader of the Assyrian army managed to escape despite the magnitude of the miracle. After his failed attempts to conquer Jerusalem and his mockery against the God of Israel, he returned to Nineveh. However, his end was not as grand as he might have imagined. While worshipping in his own temple, Sennacherib was assassinated by his own sons, Adramelech and Sharezer. The precise details of this event are not entirely clear in the historical narrative, but the Bible relates that during this act of worship, Adramelech and Sharezer attacked Sennacherib with a sword, taking his life. This shocking event demonstrates that arrogance and disbelief before God do not go unpunished. Divine justice, in an unexpected manner, reached Sennacherib, highlighting that no king, no matter how powerful, can escape the sovereign control of God over life and death. This tragic outcome reveals that mocking the Lord has serious consequences, and that divine sovereignty cannot be challenged without facing repercussions. As for the king, after the improbable victory over Sennacherib and the withdrawal of the Assyrian forces, Hezekiah faced a severe illness. The Bible describes this situation in the second book of Kings, chapter 20. Hezekiah became so ill that the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz, came to him and announced that he would not recover and should prepare for death. Hezekiah, faced with this news, once again turned to the Lord in prayer. He reminded God of his devotion, integrity, and service to the Lord. In tears, he begged God to remember him and reconsider his situation. God, in response to Hezekiah's sincere prayer, sent Isaiah back to tell him that he had heard his plea. God decided to heal Hezekiah and added a sign as a guarantee. Isaiah instructed that a poultice of figs be applied to Hezekiah's wound. As a miraculous sign, Hezekiah's illness was healed and he regained his health. Moreover, as a manifestation of his mercy, God promised Hezekiah an additional 15 years of life. This extension of time was a direct response to Hezekiah's fervent prayer and devotion to the Lord. This story highlights not only God's healing power, but also his willingness to hear and respond to the prayers of his faithful servants. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments if God has ever manifested in your life after you made a request in prayer. Hugs and stay with God.